all. Thank you for signing in for the fourth edition of the SATA Digital Conversations. This edition, we will be focusing on the aviation industry, and we have some really prominent personalities from the industries across the South Asian region. First of all, let me just introduce you to our panelists for today. We have Ms. Jyoti Mayal, the President, Travel Agents Association of India, TAAI. We have Mr. Ahmed Yoosuf Walid, President and CEO of the Galaxy Group of Bangladesh. Mr. Fawzan Fareid, Country Manager for Srilankan Airlines, Maldives. Mr. Hassan Areef, General Manager, Corporate Communications, Maldives Airport Company Limited, and the operator of Velana International Airport. A very warm welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. A pleasure to be here today.
Thank you very much. Greetings.
Okay, I'll kickstart, for today evening with Ms. Jyoti. Ms. Jyoti, you've been, you know the aviation industry inside out. You have decades of experience, almost close to 5 decades in the industry, vast experience, personality in the region. So, considering the current, situation that we are all in, what is your biggest worry for the industry today?
Thank you so much, and thank you South Asian Digital Travel Conversation for having me here today to share my thoughts. Well, I think right this time, it being a pandemic, we are all currently in a lockdown, and we are all currently facing these challenges, which are too many. And both by staying not only indoors, but even struggling to survive and actually to predict the future. As this is a new environment, we all struggling to bear with. We really don't know what the future holds for us. And currently also, we don't know. Every day, we are taking it as a new day, and we are making baby steps to see how we survive. I'm not talking about other countries, but India is we have around aviation industry, something like 60,000 crores business, which we are transacting every year through IATA, through low-cost airlines. And we are seeing that it's struggling a lot because we've all noticed that all their flights have been grounded here. There are some countries which flights never got grounded, and some of them kept flying. Some countries have started operating with a small fleet, but country like India is totally still under a lockdown where these travel and aviation and tourism is really concerned. So I think it's a huge challenge. And seeing the challenges, how it's going to progress and how it is moving, I feel that we have a lot to learn, of course, from what's happening, that we should always be prepared for such a pandemic, because what I was hearing the WHO say and UNWTO say, that the aviation industry is going to hit by literally like 70% if we don't start opening flights as per the strength what was available. And it could be much more also if more than 70%. And WHO says that there could be another round of the pandemic again, and we could have another COVID-20 or a COVID resurfacing of the thing. So I think these things, taking all this into consideration, I feel that we really need to reinvent, and we need to reestablish ourselves, restructure our businesses. And that's where aviation comes in. I know we have got a panelist which can say a lot more, and from the other side, from the airline side, and I speak on behalf of my industry and my membership and TAAI at large, which is the largest nodal body of India. We have 3,000 members, and our members are all basically IATA agents. So we do work very closely with the airlines. So the challenges that we see is that, firstly, of course, we don't know how the aircrafts are going to start. Then we really don't know what the social distancing, which is already in place, is going to be happening, because there are very conflicting reports on how aviation industry, especially in India, is going to start, how the aircrafts are going to be configured, what social distancing we would like, what the seat structure would be, what the sanitization would be, what the hygiene would be, how you're supposed to be covering your face with a mask. So all these things will come into place. But the biggest challenge is, like we know, that if a pandemic or a calamity like this occurs, the first person or the first industry that gets impacted is the travel industry. And that goes for aviation too, because it's a very integral part of the tourism. So the first thing that gets impacted is the travel industry, and is the last to revive. So we really are not sure how the demand is going to be generated, how the supply is there, we know, but they will not be able to start with the same costs unless the demand is generated. So that's going to be the first challenge which I feel the airlines are going to face. And the first challenge for us is that our sentiments are going to be very strong. And unless the vaccine comes out or a cure comes out, we will be very reluctant to travel. So the first type of travel that we feel would start by air would be a very essential travel. And then it would come to maybe business, and business also will be very reluctant, because in these challenging times, we've all got used to sitting at home. We've all got used to interacting like how we are interacting right now, all on a video conferencing or on a whatever platform we are using. So it's going to become very, very challenging for us to, just go out into the world and say, hey, I'm ready to fly. So that's going to be the second thing which will actually come into place. And when we start flying, what will be the cost of the ticket? How much will the airline be able to increase the fare or decrease the fares? Is going to be the third challenge that we are going to be facing. And of course, then like we said, a lot of countries are not going to start open the borders to sail. Even within India, we don't have states opening up yet. So the countries are a long way further to that. So when the boundaries don't open, how can one really get into it? And then my next challenge would be the countries which I'm flying to and have a quarantine in place. Would I be quarantined, or would I be not quarantined even if I have a cough or a cold or a slight fever? So these are a lot of things which are going to come into the aviation industry. And going beyond that, it's going to be not only about the quarantine, then we don't even know what the visa structures are going to be. Will the visa structures be wanting a health certificate? Will the visa structures be wanting, will the earlier visas be just cancelled and we have to apply for new visas? So it's not only a pandemic as a disease or a virus that is coming. It's literally like our whole world coming to a stop. And that's what's happened. And we really need to adopt that. And the challenges that we are anyway facing is we are not getting cash refunds from the airlines. We are getting credentials, which doesn't make life easy for us. We are answerable to our clients, because I don't know the structure of other countries. And of course we sit on UFTA. So we do get the structure, but India works on it's a credit market where we are actually investing our own money. So right now the airline industry the agents are struggling to survive because they do not have a cash flow with them. So all these things coming on the way of working is going to be a challenge. So that's what I tried to say initially when I started off, that we need to restructure, reinvent, relook into what our contracts are saying with our suppliers. And suppliers here, I mean the airlines, because we need to say that it's not always the airlines. I'm sorry, I know there's an airline representative here, but I would like to say that I would not like to deal with the airline unless I know my money is secured, because they have a joint bank guarantee from us. They have financial guarantees from us, where even we pay 1 rupee less, we are actually disqualified to be an IATA agent. But because this forum is for aviation, I wanted to bring this out in the perspective of all the people who are listening to me, because we need to work on a win-win situation for both of us, not only the aviation as aircrafts or the air companies, but also as the travel agents. So we need to work in harmony to build a structure and bring the best business ethics into this whole system and see that we survive well. How we do it is, I think this is the time to retrospect our own lives and see how our businesses are going to be taken forward, because right now we are on ground zero and we need to build it up. And because we need to build it up, I think we should start with the best practices, and we should sit down, make a leaving IATA and APJC, we should sit down and make a task force and see how we could benefit each other, because I think that will happen. And if something like this happens again, we should be able to face it. I think you've told me 3 minutes, and I think I should end and give the other people an opportunity to speak. But any thing you would like me to add on after this, I'm very happy to do that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. That was quite insightful. Let's hear it from Mr. Walid. Mr. Walid, your Galaxy Group has been in the travel industry or travel business for more than half a century now. You've seen like the worst of market conditions, from droughts to cyclones to tsunamis. You bring through almost the entire gamut of natural calamities that could come one's way. So
your voice is cracking. If you don't mind, Suraj, can you just move back or do something with your mic? Your voice is breaking. Yeah, thanks. Sorry to interrupt you.
Sure. One second. Am I clear now?
Suraj, I think a little bit
Here's
cracked.
my voice now. Okay, is it cracking still? Wait, let me just. Hello, is it clear now?
There is a delay. We can hear you, but it's a bit of delay and with a little bit of crack.
Okay, okay. I'm sorry about that. I think it is to do with the internet connection. So, but due to the time constraint, I'll just ask you the question and then probably I will try to fix this up at my end. Okay.
Okay.
So,
Thank you very much
yeah.
for this opportunity to speak about our state and the future of our aviation industry. I hope everybody can hear me. Basically, I would start from where Jyoti has left. She has said all the pertinent question and the anxiety and the unknown, anxiety of the unknown, how things gonna be panning out as we're in a lockdown now, but lockdown will slowly, step by step, will be removed all across the world. And I believe, I think all of us here in this forum of in different capacity, we are now looking at how do we do things beyond this lockdown, and I think that's what we are all thinking. I will add some different perspective to what Jyoti has mentioned. Yes, there has to be restructuring. There has to be changes in the way business and transactions are done between customer and travel agent and airlines. And then we are all in a sort of a same sort of a tsunami or whatever you want to name it, pandemic, etc. I would love to talk a little bit of beyond what Jyoti has mentioned. She has mentioned. One is that unfortunately, airlines, if we talk about the aviation industry and the linkage industries with it, the ground services, the travel agency, the tour operators, etc. Unfortunately, what is going to take place beyond the lockdown is the regulation will change. I would remind everybody of 9/11 in the United States. And that was an event that changed the entire security monitoring and security implementation apparatus of the whole world, and not necessarily only aviation. The same sort of practices we could see adopted by real estate developer when you went into a big building or you are going into a railway station or any public gathering. So those sort of protocol, X-ray, metal detectors, full body scanning, pat down, all those things came in as a new vocabulary in our daily life post 9/11. That was almost 19 years ago. Now, this is another time has come due to the pandemic, things will change. Now, unfortunately, the changes would be dictated not by the airlines or the travel agents or the consumer, so to speak. These changes, these regulations, what will be the distance, how many passengers can be carried in an aircraft, would be dictated by health and collective expertise from different health and public welfare and administrative decisions that, okay, how many passengers can fly in a 747? What would be the distance how many people can be checked in? All these processes and need to be examined and designed. And as of any new situation, those designing will be done maybe in a very hard way to start with by many regulatory authorities in the world. There are multiple regulating authorities in Europe is one, USA being another big one, China, India, Middle East, every country has their own. So these things will come in, and I am afraid it will be very strong regulation which would be hindering the regular business model of an airline. And when those business models had to be changed, the cost of those changes has to be passed on to the travel agent and eventually to the consumer. So this is one side which I anticipate coming in the next immediate few months. Some countries would do it earlier than later. Some country would be follower to those regulations. For example, I can tell you there are operation happening to repatriate Bangladeshis from Middle Eastern countries, example, Kuwait. And I'm directly involved with some of those flights. And what Kuwait has done initially, every aircraft, the first 3 rows and the last 3 rows of the aircraft has to be empty to take a distancing between the crew who usually stay in the front of the cabin or back of the cabin. But that's only in Kuwait and at this particular stage of time for an emergency humanitarian evacuation. When commercial schedule operation will start, those things can be more elaborate, can be more draconian to a certain degree, but then airlines has to follow those instructions from country to country. What I really hope as a partner of airline and deeply involved in this business is this. I hope the leading regulators would cooperate and come up with a uniform set of processes and regulations, so that there is no surprises that, okay, if you land in Mumbai or fly into Mumbai, there is one. If you go to Bandar Abbas, it's different, and you go to Belgium, it's different. So I hope the regulators would do this sort of processes in a unified manner, so that airlines in different countries and travel agents and the traveling public understands those, adopt, learn, and then we can follow it confidently. I think I have already done 5 minutes. I would love to talk more, but I think later on. That's from me for the time being.
All right, thank you, Mr. Walid. Moving on to Mr. Fawzan. So you have a wealth of experience in the airline industry. You have been in your role with the airlines. You have been in Japan, South Korea, Qatar, and pretty much Pan Asia. So what is the position of Srilankan Airlines in this situation? And can you put it into perspective with the timeline for the degeneration of the airline industry? Could you hear me?
Yep. Sorry, Suraj, for the interruption. Good evening to all the viewers. We are talking about a pandemic situation which is very unusual to all of us. We have seen through SARS, we have seen through MERS, we have seen the Lehman shock, and as Walid rightly mentioned, the 9/11. COVID is something absolutely new to all of us, and still people are thinking how to react to the situation. Well, as an airline personality, we too are constantly doing our homeworks. The scenario has to be taken in three perspectives. Basically, number one is the confident level of the passengers who intend to travel in future. Number two is the regulatory issues as an airline point of view. And number three, the economic impact. Coming back to the first point, the confident level of the passengers to fly on an airline. Basically, most airlines have already started, done their homework, and already started with the primary areas. For example, disinfecting the aircrafts and what to be done moving forward. For example, whether to provide a face mask or Sorry for the technical issue.
Okay, I thought we had lost you for quite a bit.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah, I was explaining on the first point. About the confidence level of the passengers to travel on to travel via air. So most of the airlines have taken measures to disinfect and what to be done next to win the confidence level of all the passengers. And I will cut it short because I didn't know I went out of the systems. Number two is the country regulations. All the airlines are currently waiting to see what countries are going to say and when are they going to open the airspaces, how long it's going to take, and what regulations, as Walid rightly mentioned, what regulations each country is going to impose. Nothing is unaware right now. Most of the countries keep extending closure of the airspace 15 days or 20 days or a month period. So all airlines are currently monitoring the situation, and wherever we can operate, we are currently operating. Most airlines are operating. In fact, airlines like Emirates, Qatar, Srilankan Airlines too have put our schedules, soft schedule on. Sri Lankan Airlines have already commenced a soft schedule to London, Heathrow, Narita, and Melbourne. Hopefully, we are intending to increase our destinations case by case when the airspace opens up. The third point, what I was talking about, is the economic impact. How long the airline industry will take. Yes, at the moment, there is a sort of a repatriation passenger movement, but none of us can say how long it's going to last. And Jyoti rightly mentioned the corporate travel. Corporate travel, again, most businesses are cutting down on the budgets, especially due to the economic impact. So we got to watch how long this situation is going to continue, but many predicts minimum 1 year for us to fall into the normal schedule and so on and so forth. But as an industry personnel airline, we hope we should return back to business sooner or later. Airlines are prepared to take the challenge. As we move on, probably I can explain a bit on the next round.
Okay. Thank you for your inputs on that. Moving on to Mr. Hassan, MACL being the biggest operator of Maldives and the Velana International Airport, how would you describe the situation on the ground in perspective of the COVID situation, and also how the flow of visitors? How would you put it? Like the flow of visitors require an alternative or more responsible management from the airport side?
Velana International Airport is the biggest airport in the Maldives, which has 99% of inbound travelers to the country. And not only that, Mr. Suraj, we also have the biggest airport expansion project in the country, which consists of code of new runway, an international terminal, aero bridges, and state-of-the-art baggage handling system, a new fuel farm, and a new cargo terminal, which can accommodate up to 3 times the size of the present facilities, and also a new seaplane terminal and other ancillary buildings. All in all, we have an investment of $1.2 billion US happening at our airport. So we are in the middle of something. And last year, 2019, we handled around more than 1 million passengers, and it was a successful year. As we know that our ATMs had a growth of 16%, and also we had seen an increase of 13% in our passenger traffic compared to 2018. And even in January 2020, also we had seen a 12% increase in our passenger traffic. But since February 2020, our figures has dipped down. And before closing of our borders about a month ago, we had roughly 2 to 4 flights on a daily basis. So due to COVID-19, just like any other airport, we were also hit hard. And this COVID-19 pandemic has led to unprecedented challenges for aviation industry. And we are also having our trouble days. Now, in the Maldives, the ground reality is at present, we have over 1,000 COVID-19 cases registered. But this could have been a lot worse had it not been the proactive actions of our government and health authorities. And yes, for safety, changes are in place at our airport of how we manage our visitors. Now, first of all, we are in a lockdown state and our borders are closed. However, we do handle cargo reliefs, humanitarian, Medicare, and special flights every day. And from any of these flights, if any passengers come, they'll be first taken to our quarantine facilities. Now, I must tell you, Suraj, these are not your ordinary quarantine facilities because they are 3-star or 4-star or sometimes 5-star hotels in which our visitors will be kept. And they'll be under close observation for 2 weeks. And they'll be released only after they go through the COVID-19 test. And at the airport, we do continuous disinfections on board the aircraft across the terminal building every day for the safety of us all. And so, yes, we have brought about changes in how we manage our visitors. And I think even after we open our borders, I foresee that the visitors will go through the similar type of flow, but I think it's too early for me to conclude on anything as our health authorities are yet to finalize on the type of treatment. So all of us, we are riding in the same boat. And then this is critical at this point of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Hassan. Ms. Jyoti, back to you again. Like, India is the largest, or India is the heart of the travel region, in the heart of the travel region of South Asia. And we have transformed as the third largest domestic aviation market in the world as well. So, and we also slated to overtake the UK to become the third largest air passenger market by 2024. With all this potential that we had predicted and we are geared up, brought together our resources, our planning strategy, everything. How do you foresee the domestic tourism post-COVID? Will the opening of Indian states be a game changer for the economy? I mean, like if domestic travel is opened up?
Yeah, sorry. Yes, like I said, it was lovely hearing all the speakers speak and give their viewpoints. And now to move on to the tourism, because I think tourism is very linked to aviation. There can be no tourism unless aviation really comes in place, because it's not always easy to travel by road or by air. So that's how tourism is going to expand. And the first expansion, like you said, would be the growth. We are anyway, and like you said, by 2024, we were supposed to be the leaders where tourism is concerned, and the way our infrastructure and our Prime Minister's viewpoint is, and the way he keeps motivating our people in India itself. And he, on 15th August on last year, he actually said it from the Red Fort rampart, saying that every Indian should be traveling 5 times in the next 3 years. So that means 15 trips every year. So that says a lot for him, motivating travel a lot. So yes, domestic travel is going to be the first thing that's going to open, and it's going to be the strength of India. India being such a vast country, we are full of every avenue of travel. It could be adventure, it could be heritage, it could be culture, it could be, MICE in a smaller way. Yes, like I said, it's going to be very challenging once it opens. But I always say that firstly, we Indians forget very easily, and that's something a USP about Indians. We quickly forget the bad or the sad part of any part of life, and we are the ones who keep moving on. So I think that's a very good aspect of an Indian traveler, because he doesn't feel so scared or threatened by so many things. Secondly, which I always again repeat every time, is man is a social animal. He is not an island. He will never be alone. He loves to travel, and he will. So if the international flights are going to be a challenge, it will start domestically. And we, like I said, India is a vast country. Once our borders start opening, there'll be a huge thrust. Yes, the demographic of a traveler is totally changing. He will look into all the things like we have already emphasized on, things like social distancing, sanitation, hygiene. That I think we should just inculcate into ourselves as going to be a part of our lives. You know, it's how we are going to be moving in the future and maybe forever. And I don't think there's anything wrong in it. I think there are good ways. We should always adopt the best parts of life. So sanitation, hygiene, and being a little bit apart, which I've always seen happen in Japan, is something which can make you go forward in life. So there's no downtrend to it. So that is how it is going to start. And India, we, like I said, we have the mountains, we have the lakes, we have the rivers, we have the beaches, we have hill stations, and there is nothing. And the things that are going to focus now is going to be solo travel, is going to be adventure travel, because you don't have to go in groups. Even medical, wellness, spas, they'll come with the do's and don'ts and the proper ways of working. But this will be the first thing that's going to go on. And then everyone knows India is a youth country. Youth is on the least being affected by this, and they know about it. So I think youth is another part which is the strength of our country, which is going to just rush out of the houses once the lockdown opens and start traveling. It will start with road travel. I'm sure it'll be drive travel first, and slowly it'll move on. And as then how airlines start operating, it'll move into that. And you know, something which we've seen, our government is also now focusing more and more on infrastructure, and that's what we've been hearing a finance minister speak since the last 4 days, that the infrastructure is getting very strong in India. Not only the infrastructure, we've seen the Ministry of Tourism is working very, very much with the travel fraternity, and as an association, we have an association called FAITH, where I'm the vice chair. It's a federation of 10 associations. The government is on a regular basis doing webinars for each and every city, picking up on cuisines, picking up on heritage, whatever that state and city is actually there to sell. And we and private partnerships are very, very willing to join the hands with the government to see that this happens, because that is going to be the future for the next 6 months. And UNWTO said next 156 countries, cities in this world are actually right now cordoned off, and they're not going to open for another 2 to 3 months. So we have to look internally, and what better than India? And when I say domestic, you know, countries like Sri Lanka, Maldives, Bangladesh, they are part of our domestic series, you know. And and as long as the restrictions are not too strong, I feel a lot of connectivity happening into these countries, and a lot of partnerships coming into these countries. And I'm sure it will be for the betterment of the ASEAN trade on this side. So the tourism will be a growth, and it will be a catalyst to do. Marketing, one thing we'll have to look how marketing goes, because that's something I feel will come in with technology much more with social media. And we'll have to tell a passenger and educate him what marketing is going to be, how virtual reality will have to show him that suppose I'm visiting Bangladesh and I want to travel to a certain area, or go and see or go and visit the cricket grounds or something like that, or whatever. I would like to know that it is sanitized, so, and it is hygienic. So maybe that could come like a marketing tool saying, hey, we are sanitized, we are clean, please come in. You know, that's all what we have to give to the people at large who want to travel and who love to travel, and they'll never sit at home. So a little part of the safety product is going to carry us, and I'm sure the neighboring countries are going to benefit, which, like I said, is a part of domestic. Europe opens to all and becomes domestic. So should India work very closely within India and the neighboring countries which are part of our extended tourism. And I think that would actually be a very good benchmark to start working together. Thank you, Suraj.
Thank you, Jyoti. That was wonderful. Coming to you, Mr. Walid, from where we left off, I mean, like earlier, can you just give me like how airlines should be positioned to deal with once the skies open up, and what would be the what do you say systems and process that they have to imbibe going forward?
Suraj, you broke up a little bit in between.
Okay. I'll just ask you the question once again. See, right now, Jyoti was telling us, like, some of the countries are not in a position to open up the skies at least for another 3 months and things. So things are pretty much not very clear. Though the airlines have all been, like, gearing up. They've understood what, or they predicted what would be, the situation going forward once the skies are open. So they've, in their bit, they've done, uh, they've put some systems and processes which they think will have to be in place when the skies open up. So what is your thought on it? Like, what do you think? Like, so we've been hearing about desanitation of planes, social distancing, like leaving seats in between rows of seats. So what else do you think is required?
Okay, thank you. I hope everybody can hear me. Okay.
Yes.
I would reply to your this particular question in 2 steps. One is the immediate things that will happen that I foresee, and one is a little bit, let's say, once the rush of what Mr. Fawzan has mentioned about people going back to their own places. So what will happen, I assume, is that once countries start opening up, and I can talk about Bangladesh. I foresee that they will open up, the authorities will open it up in phases. They will do some tests. Most likely, first international opening would be something like with India and Bangladesh when both the countries open. Then maybe neighboring countries like Malaysia or Singapore. And then it will expand to more destinations. Mind you that the infrastructure of the airports, which Mr. Dhaka airport or any other airport for that matter, is they also are now thinking of doing certain procedures, temperature checks, health regulation. So all those things will be coming in the next few weeks actually. So there will be a rush of people going back, people stuck in other countries coming back to Bangladesh, people stuck in Bangladesh going back to their countries. So there will be a sort of a rush in the beginning. And once that dies down, and then the regular travel starts, and I hope by that time, the strict or the definitive guideline, how an airline should disinfect, how an airport should space their services in the airport, inside the cabin, at the departure lounge, all those things I'm hoping should come in. And that will give us a much more clear idea. And it goes back to what Mr. Fawzan mentioned, confidence. Travel, tourism, flying, visiting, all comes down to the level of confidence people have. And that confidence translates into, what we call it bravery, or what we call it our economic means to spend. Both are coming together in terms of the confidence. Whether it's a business traveler, whether it's just a honeymoon couple or small mice meetings, all will come down. I, as a traveler, would know what are the steps. It's secure, the airport is safe for me, the plane I'm traveling is safe for me, the hotel I'm going to go and stay is safe, the bus I'm going to take from the airport to the hotel. All these things should now slowly come in, and I hope that's going to happen. A little bit of perspective on Bangladesh side is this. We are expecting sometime next month, the domestic travel would be allowed as a first step, similar like in India. And then the next step would be regional, India, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and things like that. And then the whole world. In between, I actually foresee that after the confidence and the regulation, and these two goes hand in hand, because regulation is made to make people comfortable and confident. When these two happens, then the last deciding factor comes in is ability to spend. And with the large scale of people losing their jobs, especially in Europe, in America, and even in our part of the world, I think there'll be a drastic reduction. And when I'm saying my personal, from my past experiences, the first people who will travel is people who has need to travel for jobs and business, etc., and medical and etc. Discretionary travel will take time, and that will impact, as we are here from different countries, that will impact tourism destinations like India, like Sri Lanka, like Maldives, where even somebody from UK would love to travel. Maybe that person may not have the means, financial means, to make that choice for a long haul trip. So what Jyoti has said, I believe in the short term, with the travel and the airlines, people's travel will be more restricted to regions. Europeans may be taking more regional European trips. Me and my family would be taking a trip to Calcutta, maybe. That's what I foresee. And the long haul carriers, now a little bit I have to talk about the global trade is such that, you know, long haul carriers like the big global carriers, the British Airways and Emirates and Cathay Pacifics of the world, and Singapore Airlines of the world, these airlines, the big ones, the large ones with global network, they will also play a big role in terms of creating that confidence, and their activity, their marketing, their zeal to take things forward will also help other mid-size airlines like Biman Bangladesh, or for that matter, other regional carriers, to step into that effort. So I think the big guys also have to show a little bit of the road, so to speak. So that's what I feel is going to take place in the short term, I hope. Yeah, thanks.
Yes, thank you. Fawzan, quickly to you, and just shortly, just give us a perspective from the safety side of the crew. So what can we expect in terms of safety when the flights returns to the sky, in terms of the passengers and the crew?
Yeah, Suraj, as Walid rightly mentioned during the first round, after 9/11, a lot of things, perspective of the airline security got changed. So likewise, after COVID, most airlines are looking to minimize the human contact. For example, a lot of systems are in place right now, Suraj. For example, you do online check-in, you do a facial boarding system, or swipe your QR code. Probably moving forward, the airlines will push for it or start marketing those kind of facilities to the people. And the positive side about the lockdown is more people are now used to online things and playing around with their smartphone. So this is not going to be a difficult task for the airlines to push for the online check-in, having their online boarding cards, passing through the immigration, and then do a swipe on the swipe QR code and boarding. So probably, airlines also might look at developing these kind of active areas to minimize the human contact. And coming back to my original point, winning the confidence of the passenger who are traveling, intend to travel in future. That's one area most airlines will seriously look into to minimize the human contact. And of course, with regard to the staff and the other areas, like certain necessary actions are being taken by the airlines. For example, check-in counters are being covered to avoid the contact. Also, most airlines now are opting for the personal protection equipment, PPE, or rather you call it. So this will come into play when we
Your voice is again gone. Can you do something about your mic, please?
Fawzan, we lost you there.
Yeah, we've lost you again. Okay, now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing everybody should realize is now is COVID is here for good, and there is no guarantee about the recurrence of the COVID. So it's about drawing up a regulation, or maybe at the IATA level or the ICAO level, for the passengers, for their own safety rules and regulations. So some sort of a guideline, so that every passenger has to follow a standard guideline when traveling by air. From the airlines perspective, airlines will do their homework to disinfect, and then safety of the people who will be on board when they get on.
Okay, thank you. On the same note, Mr. Hassan, you know, we've heard from the airline's perspective. I would like the same, you to shed some light on from the airport side of things. So we clearly understand, like, now all, you know, travel agents, airlines, airports, all are like connected in a whole lot of ways than we can think of. So just to get a short perspective from you on the airport side from safety and, you know,
Yeah, so if you're talking about the security in the future airports, I think you know, if you're talking about to stop the spread of COVID-19, um, well, at times of desperation, human beings has always found a solution, and I think this time also there's no shortage of ideas and innovation. Any problem arises, we humans do find the solutions. So that's what I want to emphasize. I think the airports all over the globe are bound to make drastic changes, as airports are the main entry points to any destination. And I think even now, some of the airports has begun to take actions. In the new normal, what we call, I think the digital technology and automation will play a critical role in the future of air travel. Ideally speaking, airports will have more touchless entries. I've seen from the news and from the videos that when a passenger goes through, it goes through the entry of the terminal. It's either biometric or you know, a camera is there so that you can you know, show your boarding pass or whatever. And more self-sufficient you know, self-check-in kiosks. I'm also foreseeing you know, they should have what we call the health passes or health passports, you know, after they do on-the-spot tests, blood tests, and all the airports will have disinfections in action. It would not be the same, as queues will be longer as per our social distancing, and furthermore there will be sanitization of passengers and their luggage, maybe through fogging tunnels for disinfection. And I think experts claim that it will take around 4 hours for these kind of activities in clearance. And also, while this is happening, the parked aircrafts would go through thorough cleaning and sanitization, and this would show a slow turnaround time. And I think the airlines, Mr. Fawzan, I think the airlines should take note of these time-consuming challenges. So yes, I think the future airports will be equipped with a lot of technological advances to combat the spread of COVID-19. And I will agree with you, Jyoti and Walid. I think the travel industry is very much in line with the aviation industry, right, Fareid? So apart from all these things, for now, if you're talking about saving the aviation industry, I think it's right to highlight the security of employees working at the aviation industry. Both ACI and IATA has come together to call for governments to quickly grant financial releases to assist airport operators and airlines during the unprecedented COVID-19 crisis. And support the essential connectivity the travel industry will provide for economic recovery. So this is very essential. So thank you very much.
Yeah, Hassan, just before I let you go, just we understand that the Maldives tourism minister had announced that you're looking for letting in inbound travelers by late of June, right? So just quickly tell us what is the state of preparedness Maldives is in, and the airports authorities have put in place. Very quickly, we are running short of time here, so just give us a quick brief and idea of it.
Yeah, the government has planned to open our borders on June 2020, but I think it's I think it's a good sign because our bread and butter comes from the tourism industry. But this all will depend on the situation at hand. I can pretty much say that the Maldives has one of the highest rates of testing in this region, and geographically speaking, we have segregated islands which is isolated from one another. The concept of one island, one resort is promising for any tourist who wants to get away to a more protective environment. And furthermore, health authorities are hopeful in flattening the curve soon. So at Velana International Airport, what is the assurance that a passenger has? Well, first of all, going back to the start, on January 2020, along with the Health Protection Agency, we have established temperature screening for the arriving passengers at our terminal. And well into February, we started to disinfect our terminals with baggage trolleys and wheelchairs and the likes of it. And also we have placed automatic hand sanitizers in all our international and domestic terminals. We also established the glass sheets at immigration and passenger check-in counters for protection of our passengers and our staff. And later on, we also commenced this temperature screening for all our airports who enter the international terminal. And also marks are also in place at our terminal to adhere to social distancing. Almost all our operational and administrative staff has been given awareness session regarding COVID-19. And to strengthen the daily operations, we have established, with the advice from our acting manager and director, we have established COVID-19 coordination center for internal operations and logistics. And furthermore, we have also started a program to disinfect roads and staff areas. We've also established washing areas at our terminal areas and the staff. So just before the lockdown, our canteen tables and chairs were rearranged for social distancing, but now after the lockdown, I think it's all delivery. So yes, I think I can very much say that we are pretty much prepared to combat COVID-19 at Velana International Airport, because this discipline will be there for a long time in our new normal. Thank you.
Wonderful, Hassan. Thanks for that insight. And moving on to the first one quickly, like Sri Lankan being one of the prominent airlines that operate, bringing travelers from different parts of the world to the South Asian region. Which markets Europe has now said that they are opening up a lot of their, the countries are opening up their skies, and which countries do you think might first, hit South Asia or in this region? Just briefly, give us a few names of the thing what you feel.
Yeah, more realistic scenario. We are looking at China to kickstart things. Of course, we also predict Germany also will quick enough to bounce back. But me personally would go with Walid and Jyoti said, as Jyoti mentioned, I think primarily the regional movement will start to give us some positive note, Suraj.
Right, thank you there. Mr. Walid, during the COVID, though we haven't seen much of passengers flying or tourists flying around, there's been a lot of cargo movement. And every country, has to rely on cargo movement to get essentials, drugs, pharmaceuticals, PPEs, and all that stuff. So, but still we also have a issue of cargo contamination. So what kind of restrictions do you think are in place for cargo in the Bangladesh?
Thank you. To start with, I think when the whole COVID thing blew up in our face in our region, basically in the beginning of March, so to speak, when our authorities started really getting serious. It started in December in China, but then eventually our part of the world we took serious notice sometime in March. Now, until end of March, I believe what I see, the cargo movement was still strong out of export out of India, Bangladesh into the world, and also from the world into our part of the world. But it did all change with the shutdown of the manufacturing sector. So what happened is that, and I can tell you from my personal experience from the airlines that we work closely with, until end of March, we had reduced but still steady flow of cargo, both coming in and going out. As soon as the manufacturing sector was hit, same in India, in late March, Bangladesh similar, like late March. By beginning like from second week of April, everything dried up because the cargo that goes out export comes from the manufacturing sector, and that was not there. But import continued. However, at one point, for commercial reason, the freighters, the cargo freighters that were still allowed to fly in, and is still today allowed to fly in into India and different parts of our region, they didn't have both way cargo. They could only bring from other parts, from China or from Middle East, from India into Bangladesh, but there's nothing going out. So that created that imbalance, and that forced airlines to suspend many of those cargo only flights. That's, I'm talking about the month of April. As we step into May, there are limited, China opened up, so there's tremendous requirement for things to come into Bangladesh and India from China and other parts which are still manufacturing, and that has impacted into the costing. And I would say if the normal cost was 100 rupees just 2 months ago, has now hit 300, because it's only one way, and the demand supply imbalance. This is the commercial part. Adding to that, what you said in terms of the safety, security, or the hygiene part of the air cargo part of it. Fortunately, most of the countries, the air cargo consignments either go through a screening process, or there is a sort of a gap in timing by the time it is dropped at the cargo terminal at the airport, and at the time it is uploaded into the aircraft. And by the time it reaches the destination, what I have understood is that with the high cold temperature up in the air, as well as the time duration spent on the ground in a hot country like India and Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, the possibility of contamination is there, but extremely low compared with a live terminal where people are coming in and going out all the moment. So we still have to wait and see what sort of a new regulation in terms of health and hygiene comes into play in terms of cargo handling. But you have rightly said there has to be changes in that part, because it's all manual. You have to build up the pallets manually, you have to receive the cargo, unload the cargo manually. So that's a risk to our employees, the airline employees, the ground handling company employees. So that is very critical. And I believe, as Mr. Fawzan has said and Mr. Hassan has said, SEI and ICAO and IATA should come up with uniform guidelines for us as an industry to follow. Thank you. Suraj, we cannot hear you.
Thank you, Ahmed. It was quite interesting points that you brought up, and it was it was really good. So last but not the least, I would like to throw this question at Jyoti. And You've been elected to the position of the president of the Travel Associations of India during a very difficult time. Absolutely, it's like it is definitely a wonderful post to hold, but unfortunately or fortunately, you've been thrown into right in the middle of this pandemic. So, what are your plans and strategies as because whatever you would have thought going forward, plans that you would have made or ideas that you would have had, but now it has to all be reworked and re-strategized because no fault of yours, but then this is how the world has become today. So, we will end this discussion with listening to you, and then probably just about 2 minutes to wind up the show. So I'll leave it all to you.
Thank you, Suraj. You're good that you gave the last question to me because the woman always likes to have the last word. I think that says for all of you. I'm sure at home. But on the other side, let me take this forward. Yes, I think it was God's will that I should be heading a time at this time of challenging time. But yes, I think that's what we are, what associations are for on the serious note. What are associations for? They're supposed to actually guide and mentor their members and to stand with them at all crucial times, good times, every time. And what do we need to do with them? It's always that we need to keep them abreast of the whatever is the current situation. Could be anything. So it could be the change of technology, could be change of education, could be ways of imparting education to your members, upscaling the front office staff with the help of your members. So I think that is a continuous process which we'll continue to do. The basic thing which even when I took over, was one thing was very much in my mind, especially where India is concerned, that we needed as a travel business, we need an industry status. And that was the day when I took over. My thought process was, India is a very unorganized sector where travel and tourism is concerned. And being a very unorganized sector where we have a few handful of agents who are actually come under the recognized and organized sector, rest all unorganized. But the value chain is huge, and direct or indirect, we are 10 lakhs of us around. So it needs to be organized. So that is my main thing which I wanted to be taking forward. And I think this has made me move much quicker than what would have taken me otherwise. Because right now we realized the government had to go through a lot of procedures to collect the right data, and how we help them was a big challenge. So I think government should start realizing that we need to be organized. Then, like I said, we'll be educating our members how the world is changing, how to again on the social distancing, we need to do that. So we've already started a lot of webinars like these where we are talking to all our stakeholders. We have to reinvent, I said, with all our associations, with our suppliers, with our travel, with our business partners. We have to see the best practices come into force, and that will exist and that will coexist. So enforcement of a travel agents needs to be re-established. And I was reading an article just a couple of days back where they said, a time came when people were very worried travel agents are going to go away. But with this pandemic coming in, I think we are re-establishing ourselves, because no one can exist without us, because everyone needs a way of distribution right now, with the business not absolutely evaporating from the market. So I think that is what we plan to do, and we plan to state, and we are there to motivate our members and handhold them and see that we all survive in these challenging times. And I'm sure we will, because we have a strength, and we are a united force where we will work together. And thank you once again for giving us this opportunity to speak about India and TAAI as such. Thank you, Suraj.
Thank you, Jyoti. That was wonderful to hear your plans and strategies going forward. Thank you, gentlemen. It was wonderful having all of you, and thank you for sharing your really experienced insights into the travel and aviation industry. Thank you for joining us, and hope to see you all in real time sometime soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm going to just request everyone, please share your numbers and your contact details.